So we're going to have a quick run through all the bits and bobs on the outside of the camera. I'll demo some of them, but really this is just to let you know what each of the functions on the outside of the camera are. So we're going to break everything down right down to the very basics here. So the zoom is here, so obviously when you're naturally holding your camera you can zoom quite easily. There is also a zoom here, which is a new feature. So if you were holding your camera, having it sat in your hand like this, you can use your thumb to change that zoom. We'll come back to that shortly. Your shutter button is here in the center. So when you go to take the picture, you can do a full press or you can do a half press so that you focus and then press down fully when you're ready. The strap mount is obviously here on the side. I did do a video on how to attach your camera strap and I will link that here as well. So we've got our main dial here. This comes into play a lot when we're in manual mode, not so much when we're in automatic, but if we were to have a quick look at some pictures, so I just took some sample pictures. If we move this dial here, you'll see that it jumps 10 images. You see it says 10 there. So as you scroll that, you can jump through a lot of the images you've taken without having to scroll through every single one. If you were going to go through them individually, you would use these. So this main dial here, you'd use either side as an arrow, basically. As you saw demonstrated so wonderfully, we've got our on and off button here, which clearly switches the camera on and off. So the flash is still manual. It doesn't pop up on its own. So you simply just pop it up and back down when you don't want to use it. If you try and take a picture in a dark environment, you'll get this notice to raise the flash and a red camera sign flashing. It's basically saying that it can't get a stable slow shutter, so pop up the flash. So if I pop up the flash now, that warning will go away. On the front here, you'll see this circle here. This is your lamp. So when you are trying to take a picture in a dark environment, that will light up just to help the camera focus. It will just give it a bit of assistance with focusing. Going down to the side of the camera here, you'll see the port to pop in a mic. It's a simple jack. And right next to it here is the speaker for the camera. The microphone is in fact above and here. You can see the gridding on the mic. So these two buttons here, they assist with the framing of your photo. We're going to go into it in more detail because that's probably a video on its own. So I mentioned the zoom here. You've got telephoto or wide. So your telephoto will zoom in and wide will zoom out. So what you can do is you can set these buttons to do different functions. I will show you quickly. So if we go into our main menu, you'll see I've already been playing with it. If you hit the set button to enter this option, you can either set it to do a slow zoom, a fast zoom, or to set a manual focus distance. At the front we've got our lens. I will try not to blind you with the light that I've got above. And as mentioned in a previous video, I do have a filter adapter on here. Didn't want to come off then. So that just attaches with those little notches onto the front and then twists and locks in place. So you can attach filters to your camera. On the bottom, we've got our serial number here. We've got a tripod mount so that if you do want to mount it onto a tripod, you can. And then obviously we've got the catch for our battery, where we've got our battery and our card in there. So moving on to the back of our camera here, we've got our screen, as you have seen so wonderfully demonstrated. Sorry, it is a bit grubby, but if you don't use your camera, it won't be. So we can turn this 180 degrees. So if you do want to do videos of yourself or you want to take a self-timer photo, things like that, this is really handy to be able to spin it around and see when the picture is being taken. And also if you don't want to use the screen, you can pop it away to protect it. There is also the eyepiece here. Now there isn't a sensor on the eyepiece, which means that say you are taking a picture, you've got your camera like this and you're looking at the screen and you cover that sensor, it thinks your face is in front of the eyepiece. So it switches the screen off and switches to the eyepiece. From what I can tell, you can't stop it from doing that. It is kind of annoying, But if you are having trouble, you know, trying to take a picture and you find that the screen keeps going off, it could be because you're covering that sensor that thinks you're using the eyepiece. Just underneath the eyepiece here, you can see a little sliding dial that changes the focus of the eyepiece, same as you would get with binoculars and that sort of thing. So it adjusts for your eyesight, basically. So you can take photos looking through the viewfinder. It's actually quite good quality. I used to find with the SX70 that I didn't like using the eyepiece, but this one's not so bad. I do quite like it. We've got our Wi-Fi button on top here. This allows you to connect the camera up to your phone. So I have got the app, I have connected it, but I did find that it took forever to send a photo. Could be because I was sending them as full quality. It could have been my connection. I'm not 100% sure, but you can connect it up to your phone and it does send the images. However, it may be a tad slow. On the other side here, we have got, so these icons are for the remote shutter, USB and HDMI. So underneath this flap here, you've got the connection. So your remote shutter there will simply plug in, same as the USB and the mini HDMI there. So the remote shutter allows you to attach like a small clicker basically. So it will allow you to click that without touching the camera. Really good for night shots if you don't want to move the camera as you press the button. It's also good for taking shots that are several seconds long, because obviously every time you take a picture you touch the camera and that can shake the camera and cause problems. We have our video recording button here. There's also a video mode at the top there, but quite honestly, if I've taken any videos, I've just pressed the button there no matter what mode I'm in. So there may be more to explore with the video mode, so I will reserve my judgment on that one. So we've got the same buttons as we had on the SX40 on the back. So we've got the info button. So this can be handy even when you're in auto mode. So if I'm in automatic mode at the moment, and if I hit the info button, you can see that the information displayed is changing. I can have it on its own. I can have it with some very basic information. So it's telling me what the time is, even though that time is definitely wrong. It tells me how much battery I've got left. It tells me that I'm in macro focus, so it knows that I'm up close to something. It's telling me how many pictures I've got left, how much space I've got on my card, and that it is doing an automatic ISO. If I press it again, it gives me more information again. So I've got a single shot, no self-timer, the images are in large, and if I take any footage, it's full HD at 50 frames per second. And if I press it again, we've got a histogram, and it's also telling me the white balance and the focus type that it's using. So there's a lot of information there, a lot of which I probably don't pay attention to when I'm in automatic, but when I'm in manual, that's a whole other story. So the info button can be very useful. If we go into playback mode and hit the info button, it gives us similar information. So it tells us what the ISO was when we took the picture, the f-stop and the shutter speed. So you get quite a bit of information. I've pressed it again and it's displayed it in another format. And then if you keep pressing, you go back to just a simple image display mode. So you can do quite a lot with that info button. So up here, we've got these additional buttons, which I haven't had a chance to play with yet. So in the top right-hand corner, we've got the auto exposure lock. Next button down is an autofocus point selector. So you're going to choose what area of the screen you want to focus on. So you have to be in manual mode for this to work, but you'll see that if I press this button and then use the sides of the circle as arrows, I can tell it where I want it to focus. So I have done an example picture of this. I was doing it while I was playing around to begin with, so I'll show it on the screen now. But essentially, I took the same photo but moved the point of focus, and it allowed me to blur out certain parts of the image and focus on one part. It didn't have to be in the center, so that's really handy. So moving down to our circle on the front here. So if we press the top button here, this is the exposure compensation button. So it's another one I haven't had a chance to play with yet. So to the left here, we've got the macro and manual focus options. So we're going to have a play with those at a later date. To the right, you've got the flash options. So you can either have flash on auto, so even if you've lifted the flash up, it will only use it when it needs it, or you can set it to always use flash. And at the bottom, we've got our delete option if we want to get rid of any images while we're browsing through the camera. So we've got our playback button here, which allows us to go back through the images that we have on our camera. And as I said, you press right to left and you'll be able to go through the images that you've taken. As you can see, they're beautiful. And then we've got our menu button down here, which when we press, we've got a multitude of different menu options. There are so many to go through. The one that I tend to use on every single camera I get is to silence the beeps. I really don't like having a noisy camera, so I go into the main settings, into screen 3 and down to beep, and I disable it. I just don't like having a camera that makes loads of noise. Some people prefer it. The other thing that I did change is in the first menu here on the first page, and it's the image review. So when you take a picture, sometimes it holds it on the screen for a couple of seconds. The options are 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds, or to hold it on the screen until you tap the shutter button again. I have it switched off because sometimes I want to take several pictures in a row, and if that image is displaying, I may miss the thing that I was hoping to get a picture of. So there's a breakdown of the camera itself. I'm sorry that it has taken so long. I did go away to the Lake District and got some really good pictures. Just as a brief summary at the end of this video, I don't find that compared to the SX40, it's majorly different. Things like it being able to deal with low light environments and things like that. In general, it's a good camera, but I think as an upgrade, probably not needed. I think they did such a good job with the SX40 that it's kind of a hard one to beat, really. I'm not saying you shouldn't get this camera. I'm just saying I think if you've got the SX40, you may find that there isn't a great deal of difference between them. Obviously, it's got a bigger zoom, the megapixels are higher, the option of RAW is on there, they've got full HD film, it takes the ultra fast SD cards. So there's definitely bonuses to it. You've got the wireless function where you can send images. So it's definitely worth looking at. It's definitely worth getting if you haven't already got a camera. But if you do have an SX40 or one of the other predecessors of the SX70, it may be worth having, I think, if you're looking to upgrade, having a look around a bit. But that's just my opinion. Others may disagree. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.